Upon meeting new people, my mother would declare herself a hug collector and embrace them almost instantly in this first introduction. Her quirky and ironically antisocial behaviors frequently lacked propriety. I watched many people react silently to this seeming invasion of their boundaries. I think this was a formative part of my understanding about how people relate to one another. Unwilling to advocate for themselves in an honest way, my mother's invasive requests were rarely met with direct protest. This was the part in her blindness she couldn't see, but that in my unfortunate sightedness I became privy to. I was in some ways repeatedly humiliated by the assumption that I would choose to be complicit in this mockery of her. I used to have sex with strangers to get touch. There was no other realm in which it seemed appropriate to get touch that would not subject me to the humiliation of my own request. With sex, it was assumed that we were both consenting, and it was not that difficult for me to get others to physically or verbally proposition me with sex. Sometimes I would have sex with people who I had established friendships with, and this felt safer to me because there was fondness and love even. But the precedent had been set for friendship, so there was no expectation for emotional or sexual consistency. I typically avoided dating or romantic relationships because in that arrangement, for some reason, I didn't know how to advocate my desires or limits, and my partners usually turn abusive. Unfortunately, sex complicated my friendships with women to the point of dismantling them. With men, there was less complication. There was always a quality of desperation to my mother's behavior. In retrospect, I realized she was just doing what she knew to get her needs met, and she was very explicit about what she craved from people. I think that to my mother, requesting a hug from a complete stranger was a way of expressing caring, a naive notion, but I no longer fault her for it. I've always felt a little bewildered by the contradiction between my mother's apparent physical availability and what I identify as my own touch-deprived desperation. I suspect that at the time my mother was not really emotionally equipped for giving back. She needed all those hugs because she was so empty, and that emptiness was all she had to give back